going to be a great presentation, having already seen the slides. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Please use the chat room. So if you want to just introduce yourself now and say which country you're in and maybe what time it is, that would be great. Jill will take questions in the chat room as we go through. Good morning to you. Thanks again for joining us. At the end of this presentation, you will receive a certificate. And by the end of the week, I will have sent out to you the presentation and a copy of the recording so you can share with colleagues and listen again. So as we're 10 o'clock here in the UK, I'd like to introduce you to Gill Budgell, who is our phonics expert. Jill is currently in Barbados, where it is a lot earlier than 10 o'clock in the morning. So over to you, Jill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amanda. And good morning, everybody, and a huge welcome from here in Barbados. You can probably see from behind me, yes, it's very early. It's 5 a.m. in the morning, but I'm awake and I'm ready. And oh gosh, it's fantastic to see people coming in from Ukraine and Siberia and Russia and Turks and Caicos. It's always amazing to me to see how many people are able to join us. So some people even saying good afternoon. So lovely. So today we have an hour. South Africa, I must stop looking at the chat box. Today we have an hour and I'd like to talk to you about starting phonics. So what do we do with young children when we're getting them started? So when they're in kindergarten and possibly even a little bit into grade 1. Well, before we do that, let me just very briefly introduce myself so that you know who I am and why I'm here to talk to you. Someone from Trinidad at 5 a.m. Welcome, Michelle. So I started my educational career as a primary teacher, a first school actually, early years and primary teacher. And I did a few years in British mainstream before I then developed some skills in ESL and ELT teaching and advisory work. And I got very interested in having the correct resources because I felt like I never quite had the resources I needed to support the bilingual children that I was working with. And so I then got some qualifications and then I thought, you know, I need to join educational publishing so that I can actually make some of these resources to support teachers and children. So you can see how my career has evolved over 30 years or more into early years and primary, particularly interested in English language development and specifically phonics. And of course, always UK and international markets. I worked all over I've been lucky enough to work all over the world. And in the last year, I've been working from Barbados on their amazing welcome stamp. So that's been a huge privilege. Let's move on without further ado. Oh, in fact, I won't even show you that. Just to get you started and chatting and thinking this morning, could you please write down the word phonics? So Phonics, phonics. And then can you think of all the different ways that you could spell it using different letters? Show me what you know about phonics already. Which different letters could you write? So you've put phonics in the chat room. Right, here we go. Chelsea has put phonics with an F and an X. And so has Elise. And, oh, I missed that one. Gosh, so many of you. It's going so fast. Yes, thank you. Mariam has put lots of different spellings with using CK. Let me show you what I mean. I think you've got the hang of it brilliantly. Morning from Cairo. So here we go. This is one I made earlier. You can see we can have great fun with phonics. It doesn't have to be boring or sluggish. Look at the different things we can do here with our knowledge of letters and sounds. That's what phonics is, our knowledge of graphemes, letters, phonemes, sounds, letter sounds, and the way they work together so that we can use them to be able to read and spell words. So you can see I've cheated a few on some of these. I've put double F at the beginning. We don't normally have double F at the beginning of a word. You can see I've put double F here as well with CHS at the end. Yeah, Mikesha's put phonics, but we wouldn't say phonics. We would need the F for the sound at the beginning. Oh, here's a very clever one. Ekaterina has put Ghonics, and I'll come back to that because that's a very clever one. And you can see that at child level, you could do this very, very simplistically using a word like cat. I'm not necessarily saying you would do this with children, certainly not at the beginning, but I just wanted to actually, I wanted to see how much you knew about phonics, and clearly you are also an expert group, which is great because I can talk very freely. So this is what we're going to cover. We're going to remind ourselves what are the core principles of systematic synthetic phonics, SSP. This is what we tend to use as the term SSP, systematic synthetic phonics. We're going to I just want to share with you some curriculum requirement thoughts, foundation skills and knowledge. What does a lesson sequence look like? What's a lesson routine look like? Using the example of snappy sounds from Macmillan as my examples for you, and then some bigger examples of what this looks like. Okay, so let's get on straight away. Excuse me. I thought it might be useful to start with what synthetic phonics is not, because there's a lot of misunderstandings, not surprisingly, around what phonics is and what it isn't. And this is partly because old-fashioned phonics, we sometimes refer to as analytic phonics. And analytic phonics, if you look bottom right on my slide, is this. It's really about spotting letter patterns and rhyme. So it would be knowing that if I can spell eat, that I can do meat and eat and eat. And this isn't what structured synthetic phonics is at all. It's not about, we do use rhyme, Nina, but it's not really a fundamental part of structured synthetic phonics. It's not about memory. It's not about learning or guessing or looking at pictures and reading the pictures and thinking I can read. It's not particularly about alphabetical order either. You can see here, I put the alphabet here. I wonder if anyone knows why. Why is it not about alphabetical order? Why do we do a different order of letters? Anyone know? If not, we'll come on to it, so don't worry. People are still joining the room, actually. Welcome all as you come in from Turkey and KSA. Okay, so it's not about letter names particularly. Mariama said the formation of the sounds and how easy or difficult. It is about that. That is partly why we don't do the alphabet, but it's actually about, it's about having letters very early on that we can use to make words. Because if you begin with A, B, C, D, there's very few words that you can actually make beyond cab or dab. So yes, we need them to learn how to read and spell, Fatma says. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So it's not about onset and rhyme or learning those sight words or seeing or hearing patterns, not yet. It is later about patterns, sometimes with spelling. It's not about listening for environmental sounds, like you can probably hear my aircon or a motorbike in the distance or the birds coming alive for the dawn chorus. It's not about that, although young children need to have those skills. Clearly, they need to know how to listen generally before they can learn how to listen for letter sounds. So this is just a very brief introduction about what it isn't. It's not about shared reading or even reading for pleasure, really, because the books aren't really, they can be pleasurable, as you'll see when I show you some of these lovely books. But this isn't, these aren't rich literary texts. So let's move on. So we've just touched on this a moment ago. It is about structured synthetic phonics, is about learning the English alphabetic code. And it's about learning the relationship, as I said, between the written letter, the grapheme, we call it, and the letter sound, the sound it makes. Someone needs some help with some sound. Amil Baker. There is sound, so I hope you managed to turn on fairly soon. So you can see here that a lovely resource within snappy sounds is these cards. They really are fantastic and very, very useful, laminated, quite strong, so the children can have them in front of them in the classroom. Putting that in front of me, I think I dimmed the camera, so I'm back now, hopefully nice and bright. And you can see that this is level 1. These are the first letters and letter sounds that we teach the children. Notice what I was saying, this isn't in alphabetical order. Remember, not in alphabetical order, so that children can really begin to use those letters to blend to read and segment to spell words. And you can see in the bottom right, I've put actually the set 1 books. And the letters, you can see focus elements. This is the order of the letters as they're introduced. So we always, any structured synthetic phonic program will always give you an overview of the letters that it introduces and the order. Okay, so that's one fundamental principle of synthetic phonics. So what else do we need to know about the English alphabetic code? Well, we need to teach the children that sometimes one letter makes one sound. So here we've got the letter M, and it makes the sound Jenny's asking from which age. Normally this is from kindergarten. Some people do it in nursery, but normally it's from, I'm talking here about kindergarten. So it's really quite early on, and you'll be amazed at how expert the children become very quickly with this very direct teaching. Morning, Maxine from Trinidad and Tobago. People are still coming in, so you're all very welcome. We also need to teach children that sometimes there are 2 letters that represent 2 sounds. So here we've got the example of CH, 2 letters, but it makes one sound. I'll come in close so you can see. Ch, ch. And then sometimes, the children love this, we have to teach them that there are 3 letters that make one sound. So here we've got IGH makes the sound I, long vowel phoneme, I. And even sometimes, I feel like I'm talking to you now like I am in the classroom, but really the children are mesmerized by this sometimes. 4 letters can make one sound. So OUGH can make the sound ow, ow, or in fact, it can make other sounds too, which we'll come back to in a moment. So you can see this idea of 1 letter, 2 letter, 3 letter, 4 letter, making one sound, being code for one sound is a very important principle. We also, from a very early age, talk to children about using these letters and sounds to blend the phonemes. Remember, the phoneme is the letter sound in order to read a word. This is fantastic because even 4- and 5-year-olds can read very simple words, like here, once they know the letters k, a, t. So we look at the word and we can't read it. So we say, okay, what sounds do these letters make? K, a, t. Does that help us? Not really. It doesn't sound like anything I know. Let's do it a little bit faster. And various programs have various sort of techniques to help you to say it faster, to help the children to blend. So sometimes people use the arm, and then the children say, oh, gosh, it's cat, it's cat. And we say, yes, well done, we've read the word cat. So we've used our graphene phoneme expertise to read the word. But before we even see it in print, see this little croc at the bottom here? Or alligator, not an expert in that. Don't forget oral blending too. So early on when we're teaching the children about letters and sounds, we can play with the letter sounds. So we can say, listen, am I saying cat or hat? Listen carefully, and I can say to the children, k, a, t. Listen, k, a, t. And they say, cat. And then you can do it with different words. You can say p, a, t, your head. and the children pat their head. So this is tuning them in to really listening and focusing on you as the teacher, giving them the pure letter sounds. And you can see here, this is one of the worksheets from the Macmillan Snappy Sounds. I think they're in the resource book, but if not, they're online. And you can see here, this is an idea called 3 in a row. So you've got very simple words, all with those first letters. No letters appear here that you haven't already taught to the children. And that is key to structured synthetic phonics. We don't expect children to read words that feature letters and sounds that we have not yet taught. They must be decodable. So that's really a really important principle too. I'm so sorry, some people are still struggling with their sound, I think, so I do hope they're able to join us soon. So another very important principle is this one, that actually reading and spelling are two different sides of the same coin. So we read and we spell from a very early age. So I've just explained how blending works. This is segmenting to spell. So just as I've learnt cat, I can read the word cat. So I could say, I want to write the word cat. How do I do that? I might think of the picture. I might do cat. Oh yes, I know what a cat is. I want to write that word. I can hear k. What letter do I need to write to represent the sound k? And you can be, just as I'm doing this with you, you could be modeling this for the children so they know what to do. K. Right, I write the letter C. Oh, yes. What letter do I need to write to represent the sound ah? I write a letter A. And so on. So then I write the letter T. Then I have to blend those sounds to check that I've written the right letters to represent the sounds. So then here you see, I have to say cat. Yes, I did. I wrote the word cat. And that's at its very simplest what we want the children to be doing from very early on. And they make mistakes, of course they make mistakes. We still make mistakes with our spelling as well, but it doesn't matter. They're really off onto a great start. And you can see I've just tucked in at the bottom here some more sophisticated ideas, which I won't be going into now. We talk about these types of complications in the next webinar, which is about developing phonics. But you can see it becomes more and more complicated. So if we want to write the word night, that's n, I, t. And I have to already know that IGH, 3 letters, 1 sound, can help me to write that word. And what we don't do is say blah. We don't learn blah, and then we don't learn and. We don't learn those blends. Each letter must have its own sound unless it's something that we've learned as a cluster. So blend, to spell the word blend, is b, l, e, n, d. 5 sounds, 5 letters, and so on. Anyway, must move on because already time is going very quickly. Later on, and I'm not going to, I've lost my vision. How did I do that? Sorry, I can no longer see myself in this. Oh, there. Thank you very much. Sorry, I don't know how I did that. I won't spend too long on this slide, but you can see that what we learn later on with the children is that something like the letter A can be spelt in lots of different ways, and this is very liberating for the children. I think Maharasi has just asked this question: are there rules for alternatives? Well, there aren't really very many rules. It's just one of those very difficult things about learning English. But knowing that you have choices is one very important step. So letter sound A can be spelt, as you can see on this slide, in all these different ways: A-Y, A-I, A split digraph with E, the letter A at the beginning of apricot, and even E-I-G-H in a very unusual word like 8. Similarly, you can see on this slide, it's just loading now, going a little bit slowly, that O-U-G-H, do you remember we used that earlier? I hope I've kept you all with me because I think there was a bit of a lapse then. On this slide, you can see that actually we also have to teach the children that the same letters can sometimes be pronounced differently. Now, we're not doing this so much at the very beginning because, as Maharasi says, it's very challenging. But knowing that OUGH sometimes represents cough through thou and bow, and bow is a very important part of the process. What is also very important, sorry, my slides are loading up very slowly here, is the importance of clear pronunciation. And while that slide is loading up, I'll show you that in Snappy Sounds, there are these wonderful close-ups of the mouth and the lip for each of the letter pronunciations. So if you're bilingual, multilingual yourself, and you're not sometimes quite so sure about pure pronunciation in English, that can actually be a really big help. You can see on the slide here I am in another program where I'm actually on screen, and it's rather embarrassingly just shows this part of my face. So you can actually see me saying, I'm going to say the letters on the screen now for you. S, A, P, W, not L. We try not to put the schwa on the end of the letters. B, K, I. So you can see that having something like that to really support you or a colleague, a less experienced colleague, could be really helpful because this saying the pure sounds, given that you're saying the sounds to blend to read the word, it's very important that you say the sounds correctly. There's a little challenge here. For which 4 letters in English do I need my lips to touch? There was certainly 1, I think, in the letters that I said. Oh, 2 actually. Which 4 letters do I need my lips to touch? Yes, P. P. Yes, B. Yes, M. One more. M. So P, B, M. And the last one is a bit tricky actually. It's a W. W. Letter W is W. W. And letters like F, V, and Y, the lips come very close, but not exactly touching. Yes, Simon got the W, well done. So you can see you can have some fun with this, and the children can do all sorts of mouth and lip exercises, particularly if you know within your language, your first or home language, which letters the children are going to find really difficult. So really, really focus on those. So that's in a nutshell some of the core principles of structured synthetic phonics. So let's move on rapidly. Don't worry about having access to the resources. Macmillan will talk about that at the end, and certainly I know you'll be able to get hold of some of the materials to have a look at. So what do we mean by, oh, sorry, I've jumped a slide. Actually, I am going to jump this slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I can see time is going very quickly. I just wanted you to think about what your curriculum requirements are in your country. So this is an example from the UK, from the Early Years Foundation Stage Framework, which is our statutory requirement for young children to have achieved these skills by the end of the age they're 5. And you can see there's quite a lot that we expect children to do, both in saying sounds, reading words by blending, recognizing letters, forming letters as well, and even spelling and writing simple phrases and sentences. So it's quite a tall order, and it would be good to think about what your country says about learning to read and write, and whether there are any specific requirements for synthetic phonics yet. In Snappy Sounds, you can see the first 4 levels, and that's across the first 4 terms. deal with these things. So someone was just asking, Nina was asking about diphthongs, vowels, consonants. Can we name them? I'm not sure what you mean, Nina, whether you mean, do we name them with children? I actually prefer to use the correct terminology with children because they are astoundingly good at knowing complex words once you've explained them. You know, they have no trouble with learning something like Tyrannosaurus Rex. So I'm sure they can cope with learning grapheme and phoneme, but that's a personal choice. And if you feel better with letter and letter sound, then that's absolutely fine. But you can see that in the early stages, we're looking at short vowel phonemes, consonant phonemes, letter names, consonant digraphs and trigraphs, long vowel phonemes, and so on. So quite, even long vowel phonemes. And we tend to go about 4 letters or sounds a week. This may be different if children are bilingual or multilingual. I would prefer to go a little bit more slowly. Even in the UK, I would prefer to go a little bit more slowly and make sure that the children have really learnt and overlearnt the letters and sounds that I'm introducing. Let's have a little look at some of this terminology. It was a good question, Nina, at this point in the presentation. Here's a little quiz. If we can race through this, have a look. So look at the coloured speech bubbles. Which one shows you a grapheme phoneme correspondence? Just quietly have a little look at that as you work through, and then I'll put up the answers in a moment. Which one shows you short vowel phoneme? So just to give you an example, because I should model as a good teacher, grapheme phoneme correspondence is the bottom one. Letter S is the grapheme, represents the sound S. So that's the answer to that first bullet, is that blue bubble. Are you having a look at the others? Short vowel phoneme. What colour can you see for short vowel phoneme? Green. Yeah, well done, Mariam. Yeah. What about consonant phoneme? Where can you see a consonant phoneme? Have a look at that. The consonant phoneme is, yes, well done, Max. Actually, it's great. It probably looks great to you. It's M is consonant phoneme. Blending to read. Blending to read. We're looking at the word night, and we can go night, and we can read it. That's blending to read. Segmenting to spell. Who can see of segmenting to spell? Oh, sorry, I did that wrong. Yeah, red is the sorry, I'm rushing. Is the red is the blending to read. So we see the word and we say night and we read night. The yellow one is segmenting. We think of the word night and then we have to break it down, segment it into its letters. Night. So it's the yellow one. Consonant digraph. I think someone picked this one up earlier. Well done. Everyone's joining in brilliantly. Consonant digraph is the grey. It's 2 letters, 1 sound. Ch. Adjacent consonants. Adjacent consonants in a word, I should have said. So here we have, yes, thank you, Rahini, stamp, st and mp are adjacent consonants, and we do teach that slightly later on with children. Long vowel phonemes. Where's the long vowel phonemes? Excellent, you're really good at this actually, so I know that you're an expert audience. Light green, A, E, I. And tricky words, words that don't always necessarily follow, yes, well done, follow the phonic rules. So the and who, we have to teach those differently to children. Excellent. So those were the answers on this next screen, but I think you all did really well. Somebody's saying, what does it mean? And we may need another session to go back over some of those things. But what it means is that we can use this terminology, this meta language, as we sometimes call it, with the children. Now, if you are sat there thinking, what does it mean? I'm not sure. I need to address my own knowledge and skills as a teacher in this area, then again, you need to look out for a program that supports you with training. This is really important. And in Snappy Sounds, I was going to the teacher's book, but I have put it on the screen. You can see there are lots and lots of little mini videos that you can tune into. So if you forget something, or you think, oh gosh, I can't think how to do a review in my lesson, then you can look at these mini videos, and that comes as part of the program. I think this is really an excellent feature of this program. And sometimes you have to sign up to really big, expensive courses, but actually what you want is something at your fingertips that you can really just tune into, and you can do a lot of new learning yourself. Okay, I'm really going to run out of time, but we're about halfway through. So I'll just plow on, I'm probably about halfway through. So let me say a little bit more about tricky high-frequency words, because this always comes up as a question. Well, if a word is tricky, if I'm trying to teach the word the or who, how do I use phonics? Because one of the things we say to children is, let's do a phonics first approach. So when you see a word you don't know how to read, try using your phonics first. So even in a word that's like the, if you've learnt that TH is a digraph that has one sound, which we notice the tongue between the teeth, then you can use that, but then you say no, that doesn't really help me to read that word. So what we have to teach the children is that you have to do a sort of little jiggle, and you have to support them with this. So you have to say to them, just try saying for the sound and forget the E. The. It says the. Now, I know it's a fudge and it's just the English language. We have to just deal with it. But that's what we tend to say to children. Try and use your phonics first, and then I'll help you to do a little jiggle to work out what that word is. And to be honest, many tricky words are only tricky until we know the rule. So a word like, I don't know, was, W-A-S, is only tricky if you don't know that A is sometimes pronounced as O, and letter S can sometimes be pronounced as Z. Once you know that, then you can read was, and it's no longer a tricky word. So, but of course, at the beginning, there are lots of tricky words for young children. So that's an important principle as well. Now, in terms of snappy sounds, in any program you choose, actually, but I particularly like this one in snappy sounds, you need a really strong lesson sequence. So you know where you are as a teacher, particularly if you're not so confident in English, and also where the children are. So in snappy sounds, this is the lesson sequence for the early stages. And we're going to look through this in a little bit more detail. So you can see that there are quite a few stages. And of course, like any good teaching and learning, we get the children ready to learn, whatever your techniques are for that. It might be doing some hand exercises or sitting still for a moment and just breathing and focusing. We review what we've already learnt. Aren't we clever? We already know some letters. We tell them what the lesson objective is. What are we going to learn today? Let's make it really explicit that there's an expectation that we're learning something. And then we go into the phonics. If we say the new sound, we hear the new sound. We write it, we read it, we spell it. We review the lesson. What did we learn today? And then we go off to do some independent practice, because we need to apply what we've just taught. And actually, again, in a nutshell, if you're familiar with that English expression, that's the lesson sequence. And it's very powerful because the children, it gives them confidence because they know where they are. Another lovely feature of snappy sounds are these super cards. There's a very simple one there. There's a more complicated one there with O for boat. And the clever thing is that on the back of those cards, sorry, when I put these up, it makes the screen go dark. You can see here and on the screen itself, that's your lesson guide. So you can be showing the children the letter card, and you can be reading, if you need the support, you can be reading what you're doing on the other side. So that's a really lovely feature of this program, and it gives great confidence, I think, to you as teachers. I'm just checking that everyone is still there because I haven't had any comments for a while. So do keep talking to me so that I know you haven't dropped, the internet hasn't dropped out or anything. Lovely. Thank you very much, Alina and Sushma. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Great. So those letter cards are super supportive for you as a teacher. So look out for a program that offers you that kind of support. So let's have a look then at that lesson sequence. What does it look like in reality? Well, first of all, we get children ready for learning, and we review the learning, as we were saying, and we also tell them what we're going to do. We say what the lesson objective is. So there's lots of different ways to do this. The card, here's the back of that card again, will support you to do that. So will these letter. Do you remember I showed you at the beginning one of these letter cards? So those are all the way through the program. So you could use those as part of your review. You could say, point to the letter that makes the sound ah, and the children have to point to the right letter on the card. You could use some flashcards. I know teachers love to use flashcards. You could do that. Or this is a fun idea. You could get some ping pong balls, table tennis balls, and you can, with a markable permanent pen, write the letters that you have already taught the children. You could put them in a bag and shake them up, or in a hat, shake them up, and children pick them out. And the one that they pick out, they have to say the letter and the letter sound. So they pick out the letter H and they say, if you've got that far. So there are a lot, make it fun, make the review and the explicit learning objective really fun. Okay, so then we go into say and hear the letter sound. Once you've said, okay, today we're going to learn the phoneme E, for example. In this example, I've used G, G. Look at my mouth again, G. It's quite an open sound. And you can see that in the teacher's book, it gives this little structure. I do, we do, I do, we do. So you're constantly, as the teacher, showing the children, modeling, and then allowing the children to do it with you. So I do, we do. So I say G, you say. And if we were here all together, you'd all be saying, I hope, G. And then if someone's saying H, we'd be picking up on that and saying, oh, watch carefully. Or if they're not quite making the right, putting their mouth in the right way, we could change that too. So here's a child saying, and this is from a program that suggests that you go and you feel the breath on your hand. That's not snappy sounds, but that's a very nice little mnemonic. And all programs will have those little games or songs to help children. And you can see at the bottom there are these letter fans. That's another quick way that you can fan the letters that you've already taught the children. And yes, somebody's saying you can use bottle caps. Yes, you can. That's a really nice idea. So you can make these things yourself. You don't need to spend a lot of money buying them. You can make letter fans, and as Katija says, I hope I pronounced that correctly, you can use bottle caps. So yeah, lots of fun ideas to engage the children. Now, writing the letter is really important. I won't spend too long on this, but find a program that supports you with correct letter formation, particularly if your first or home language is a different script. So, you know, if children are speaking Urdu, perhaps, you know, they're used to perhaps reading in a different direction. They're used to very different script. And although they don't know it at this very early stage, it has a massive influence on them. Of course, they see it everywhere they go. So teaching letter formation, you can see here, bottom left, is very important. And children need to have practice, perhaps with a silk scarf, trailing it through the air, make the letter really large. Before we expect them to pick up a pencil, make it very small. Big gross motor movement is very important. And some children find it difficult. Go on the beach, get a stick, make the letters in the sand. Here in Barbados, we could definitely do that on these beautiful beaches. And also it's important for children to write both on the vertical plane and the horizontal plane. You know, these are very different ways of writing. Writing up here and writing down here have their own challenges. So writing, very important. Okay, we've talked a little bit about blending to read, so I'm not going to go over this, but at this stage, we put together the letters we've learnt. So we've learnt G, now in my example. So now we can read these words. We can read g, a, s, g, a, p, d, I, g, t, a, g, ch, I, g. And we can use flashcards. They're very handy for this. We also need to do segmenting to spell, because remember I said they were two sides of the same coin, blending to read, segmenting to spell. So with this, as I modelled earlier, we know, remember with the cat example, you think of it, I want to write this word, what letters represent those sounds to help me write the word. And even very early on, certainly in Snappy Sounds in the teacher's book, you get little dictations. Children love to do those. They're listening. They might just be, it might just be something very simple, you know, my cat is red or something. And the children can have a go at writing, or it might just be a word. It might just be the word cat, but really simple dictations tunes the children in. And here's some really nice ideas to get the children up and active. So you can see here, you can use some little flashcards. This is from Letterland, you may know it, op. So you can use the cards. You can get the children to stand up and hold the cards so that there's some movement, get the children up off their bottoms from the carpet or the mat so that they keep engaged. Get them learning using technology, get them up to the interactive whiteboard. Use little mini whiteboards if you want to. Yes, Omnia says we use the small boards. Very nice. So, you know, there are these different techniques to keep children engaged. And when we've done all of those fun things, now it's the you do for the children, the independent practice. And a massive part of this is to provide phonically decodable reading books. So again, it's really important that you choose a program that gives you the opportunity to give children reading at the right level. So these books must only contain the letters. I'm going to show you one. This is the first one. You know from this that the children have only learned s, a, and perhaps very few other letters. Here we go. At the beginning of the book, it's hard for me to show you. You can see it shows you that the children will be expected to know s, a, t, m. So at the beginning and the end of these books, there's a huge amount of support for you, the teacher, or for parents, if you're involving parents. They're controlled language, so they're not the best stories in the world, to be honest. They can't be because we're so constrained with the language, but there are a lot of them and the children will be able to read them, and that's really important. So I've shown you one by just putting it up on the screen. While my screen is loading, it's gone slow again. Here's another one, the snail trail. You can see that that one is obviously going to be practicing the A sound. Now the slide has come up. So you can see I'm talking here about the first 4 levels of Snappy Sounds, and we've got these amazing 10 books, the last one of which is a review of all the letters and letter sounds that you've practiced through the level. So they're cumulative, and underneath you can see it tells you which letters are practiced in which books. So really controlled, systematic, synthetic phonics, really controlled. Elise, I will come back to your question. I've just noted your question, but I'm just going to carry on racing through at the moment, if you don't mind. So you can see that there are lots of books and quantity is important. So we've got all of these books. And so is finding different types of book. Sorry, the slide, I think the slide is slow again. So you can see the book I'm holding up here is about thunderstorms, and you can see it's photographic. So we have artwork, and we have, yes, thank you, Omnia, we have different genre, poetry, non-fiction, of all sorts. And this is really important to engage the children. We want lots of, and often they're very difficult to write with so few letters. They're really very difficult to write, but it's important that children have them to practice. It's also important that there's an online facility. gosh, you know, we've all just still are in many places struggling with children not being in school for a very long time. So having a program that children and parents can access from home and you can use online is hugely valuable. And of the time, we really need to be looking for a program that we can deliver online. And you can see in this lovely example, this is one of the Macmillan Snappy Sounds books. It's beautiful. It comes up in full color and you can flip through, you can have it read aloud to you, you can read it, you can engage the children. So very, very important. But there are other forms of independent practice too. And any program will have lots of either workbooks or worksheets that you can choose from to make the learning really fun. And I want to rush on and share with you some really practical examples of this. I think I mentioned earlier the worksheets that are in Snappy Sounds. And I mean, there are a huge number of fun ideas. And, you know, there's matching and there's 3 in a row to make it a game. And these are all really easy to access. But of course, we also want children to work physically and for learning to be multisensory. They're only little. They might be 4 or 5 or 6. We want materials also that go home. So we need to keep this independent practice really mixed to keep the children loving their learning and to keep us enjoying our teaching too. So I've got a lovely video here, which I think Amanda is going to upload for me. So have a look at these children in Uruguay. Let's just watch that once more. I think we might have lost the beginning of it. Okay. Do you want to go on to the next one as well, Amanda, while we're here, so that we get the videos? We'll talk about them in a moment. This one's also Uruguay, Spanish speaking. Lovely, thank you. So it's just a couple of very small examples from when I was working in Uruguay. And the first example with the children jumping over the letters that were written on the floor. That's a really nice way for getting children to tune in. So if you've learnt letters SATP, you can put the card on the floor. The children, you say S, and the child that is stood next to that card must jump over the card. And you notice in that example, the girl jumped and the other children went, no, they knew she'd got it wrong. And it's very nice when children are supporting each other in their learning. In the second, and you can play all those kinds of games. In the second example, the children were learning a song, a little song. They're mnemonics. They're ways to help the children remember. Maxine says, engaging activities to help students remember their letters and sounds. That's true. And usually you find little sayings, you know, that you can do on your arm, or, you know, make funny faces or sing a song. And this is what we mustn't forget, that even though it's systematic synthetic phonics, that this is really important. We must keep children engaged. So let's look at some more examples of that as well. So here are some photographs of different ways. So here the children are sorting little objects by the initial sound. Here the children are playing a sort of game where, a bit like the one in the classroom where this looks like it's at home, the parent is saying a letter and the children must run and stand on the letter. But you wouldn't be saying letter T, you'd be saying T, and the children listen and then run to it. Here, this is like a sort of treasure chest, and actually it looks like tricky words to me. So you can bury them in the sand and the children go digging in the sand and they find it. And if they find it, they must read it, of course. You can make little little stands like this one, so you can put the letters together to actually build the word and then read it. You can use that like a washing line with pegs. String it up in the playground outside if it's a nice sunny day, and ask the learners to peg the letters to spell different words. You could pencil the words, chalk the words onto a surface, and you can say to the child, listen, d, o, g, and the child has to run to the word they hear, dog. That's oral blending. They're listening, oral and aural blending. Oral word from the mouth, aural from the ears. So they're listening and blending. And then this one, they're running around the garden looking for, I don't know what, words or something, or letters, and bringing them together to make a word. So there is a caveat around these, and that is that quite often people get carried away with these lovely ideas, and it's easy to do the running around outside but forget the phonic focus. So the new message, certainly from the UK Department for Education, is yes, do these things, of course, make it interesting and engaging, but actually keep it really focused, because we really need children to know what they're learning, and they can be having a wonderful time and not have a clue what they're learning. So keep it focused and don't get overly ornate. I mean, some programs, you know, do go a little bit over the top with dressing up and all sorts of things. And in the reality is, in modern times, we don't have the time to do that. You know, time is precious enough for the curriculum. So keep it really focused. And if you are going to make something, a lot of the programs that are around, this one is from a Spanish one that I worked on. If you're going to ask the children to use pop-outs and make something, then make sure it's useful. Don't just make a mobile that hangs in the room and you put it up and then you never use it or look at it again. You know, make something. So here we've got a little spinning top so that they can push it out and put a pencil through the middle and they can spin it. And whichever one it falls on, whichever picture it falls on, they have to identify the word. So that's a vocabulary builder. So, you know, there are things like that that you can do as well. Okay, amazingly, I think I've actually finished with a little bit of time. It's the first time I've done that. Now, we talked about the lesson sequence and we talked about how you finish with a review. So that's what I'm going to do, show you the review of the lesson that we've kind of walked through. So we might say to the children, what letter sound did we learn today? Oh, we learned to say the letter sound G. That's the letter G. We learned to write the letter. Who can show me how to write the letter? And you might invite a child up to the front of the class to actually write the letter on the board or whatever you're using. So in those 3 bullets, we've already identified the grapheme, the phoneme, and the letter formation. Very powerful that they can do that. We learned to read and write some words with the letter G in them. Who can read this word? And you might write up a very simple word, gas. Who can write the word gap? You might invite a child up to write the word gap. So again, you've done the blending to read and the segmenting to spell. Very simply. So my review of my lesson, what did we cover? Well, we looked at the core principles of SSP, remember? Systematic, Synthetic Phonics. We remembered that it's quite useful to look at curriculum requirements. You know, what do our curricula in our different countries say about what we should or shouldn't be doing? Because obviously we are expected to follow those. We looked at some of the foundation skills and knowledge of systematic synthetic phonics and of ourselves, because we as teachers need to be fully up to date with our knowledge and skills. And so remember I said choose a program that offers you some type of training, not a massive expensive program, but something that you can use yourself to build your own confidence. We looked at the lesson sequence within Snappy Sounds, the lovely program, and the lesson routine, the importance of consistency, so you know where you are as a teacher, particularly if you're not so confident with English, and also the children like consistency as well. And then we looked at a few practical examples, reminding us that we've got to keep it active and engaging and fun. So that's my session with just 5 minutes, which is the best I've ever managed in the time. I can't quite believe I've done that. And there was a question, which I did say, thank you, Tobile. I hope I pronounced that correctly. That's a lovely comment. The question that came in was, why is onset and rhyme not so popular or not part of structured synthetic phonics? And it's a very simple answer. It's because in structured synthetic phonics, it's all about the grapheme phoneme correspondence. It isn't about letter patterns. Later on, in perhaps grade 2 or beyond, we do encourage children to use letter patterns, perhaps as part of their spelling, because it is part of spelling, isn't it? If you know that you can spell meat, then you can probably spell feet. But in these early stages, it's more important that you know that it's eat and that you're breaking down the grapheme and the phoneme correspondences. So that's why it's fallen out of favour. But there is, I mean, you know, as ever, there is evidence that that can help children, but it's not part of systematic synthetic phonics. Thanks for that question. Any other questions? Very happy to take them in the last 5 minutes. Oh, Fatma said it's the second time. Thank you, Fatma, for coming back. I hope there were enough different ideas, because I have done this presentation before. Any other questions that I can help you with, or are we pretty much there? Amanda's back with us now.
Thank you, Gill, very much indeed. Yeah, some fantastic comments from everybody. I'm really glad you enjoyed the session. That Gill's always amazing, and her enthusiasm and knowledge just shines through the presentation. So thank you so much. You will get a recording of the session. You'll get a copy of Gill's slides, and the recording will include those lovely little video clips, which were absolutely enchanting, weren't they? I think if there are no more questions, Gill, thank you very much indeed for your time. Yes, you will get a copy of the presentation, and thank you all very much indeed. Look out for our new series of webinars for the autumn term, which we'll be publishing very soon. When I send around the presentation, I will send a little bit of information about Snappy Sounds as well. So if you'd like a trial of it, then let us know and we can sort that out for you. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you, Gill.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.